Hey everyone, I'm Robin Randolph and welcome to Art for Healing and Joy. In today's video, I'm excited to share with you the art that I created after making collage papers on my Gelli Plate using lace and spice. And if you haven't already seen my videos on how to create collage paper with the Gelli Plate and lace and the Gelli Plate and spice, you might want to stop the video right now and I will link those for you below and you can catch those first and then come back to this one. And there's a few things I want to share with you in this particular video. I'm going to show you the process I did to get to the point of creating some of these finished pieces of art. One of the things I realized in doing this next level of art making and where I am in my process as an artist and in the process of finding my own voice and starting to find my own style, what I'm noticing is I kind of work between two minds, and I wanted to kind of open up this discussion. I'd love to hear your comments. Some of you are really seasoned artists and you have so much to share, so please be sure to comment down below. What I notice, and I want to ask you guys, do you notice that you work between two minds? So I see that there's this intuitive part of me that's doing art and then this more intentional part. And when I'm immersed doing intuitive art, I'm not thinking so much. I'm more in the process and loving the process. I usually have music going on and I'm just working really rapidly. But what I notice is the composition kind of goes out the window. When I'm more intentional, then I can be blending in the intuitive, but I'm taking time to really think through the placement of pieces and there's more thought that goes into it. So I'm going to be showing you a blend of all of that. We're going to fast forward through about 5 hours of videos that I took of my process to be able to create my new series out of these papers, and I'm calling this series Light, Lace, and Spice. So how I began this particular series was to just loosen up by drawing doodles and scribbles and lines and circles and dots on transparent tissue paper. It's such a wonderful way to just get in the flow, get in the groove. I put on some really fun music and I'm not thinking, I'm just flowing and going, and this really stirs up my intuitive and my creative juices. I highly recommend that you give this a go and just let your hands be loose and free-flowing. So I'll start with that and give myself full permission to just not worry about how it looks in the end, but just getting into the flow, and that really opens the way for the floodgates of creativity to come forth. And okay, next I got out my watercolors and a nice large piece of blank paper. Now, do you ever sit down in front of a blank canvas or a piece of paper and feel intimidated and not know how or where to begin? The typical thing I like to do with a blank piece of paper is to just write a couple of words, just very loose and freehand. And typically my words that I like to write are love heals. And pretty much with every piece of art I create, I either hide those words or in some pieces of art, I actually show those words. So you might want to try picking a few words that have meaning for you, and it doesn't matter if anyone else knows what it means or if anyone else sees them. Next, I'm coming in with my spray bottle and I'm just getting my background randomly wet so I can come in with my watercolors. Through much experimentation, I just find that writing the words and playing around with a little bit of watercolor really takes the edge off of my intimidation or overwhelm with the blank page. Next, I'm going through all of my lace and spice collage papers and I'm getting them prepped and ready, and I'm separating them into piles for what my favorite ones are that I'm going to save for my more intentional art session versus what I want to use right now in this intuitive art play session. Next, I bring in any other additional papers like old pattern pieces, or it could be old sheets of music. And I begin auditioning the different pieces to see which ones I just feel drawn to use for this piece. After I glue down many of the pieces, I begin to audition pieces of lace. And because this particular session is a intuitive and play session, I won't be using my favorite lace or my favorite picks for the collage papers. So I want to sort of separate those into piles accordingly. I considered this session just a kind of a warm-up. And after I got done with placing everything and gluing it down, I then went around all the edges and I tore the edges so it had kind of a rough edge look to it. And then I glued it down to a board and I went over it with some paper towel to press it down, make sure there weren't any lumps or bumps. And I even used my Brayer, the roller I used for making my gel papers. This is a perfect example of the composition went out the window. I had a lot of fun making it, but I really don't love it as a finished piece. But it definitely served a purpose to do this process because it really got me in the groove and in the flow, and then I was able to shift over into my more intentional mind. And as I began this piece, I shifted my whole mindset and began the first piece of my new series. And you can see I brought in some other black and white marks I'd made, this time on copy paper, just white copy paper. And I also have off to the side those tissue paper ones that I showed you earlier. Now in this intentional process, I'm working a lot slower. I take time to really think about contrasts and shapes and colors, and I audition the pieces, and it's more like finding the puzzle pieces and how they fit together. And you can see I chose a gold colored sort of poster board type of thicker paper. And at a certain point, it just became intuitive to work on two pieces side by side. Using a catalyst wedge to smooth it down. I love that look of the squiggles and the way the tissue paper becomes transparent. And it becomes almost lacy itself, that look. And you can see the gold underneath it. So here I'm working both intuitively and intentionally. Here I took paper towel and I painted it gold, and then I sewed lines horizontally and vertically on my sewing machine. And I learned this from a fabulous textile artist named Shelley Rhodes. And I got the idea to scribble by another fabulous artist named Cordula Cageman, and both of these artists I took online courses with from Fiber Arts Take Two, which I highly recommend. And I thought it'd be really fun to use real lace and real spice in some of these pieces. Adding the lace adds another dimension of texture, and it's really fun to work with. I just want to take a minute and say I'm using a wonderful non-toxic acrylic medium, and it's made by Natural Earth Paints, and it's great for the environment as well. I'm going to link that for you below with a couple other supplies links as well. I also want to tell you that when I was making the Lace and Spice collage papers, I didn't worry about the inconsistency with how the ink was spread, or if there were blotchy bits, or if the papers didn't come out perfect, because as you can see, I ripped them up and used just the parts that I want to, and I like that sort of look that it creates when it's not perfect. So that's sort of all part of my intention there. And then also, sometimes when I'm gluing things down, they may not glue perfectly flat, or there might be some crinkles or wrinkles, but I just think it adds to the texture, and it just goes with the lace. So not to worry. Like, some people really take, extra care to make sure everything's flat. Well, in this case, I don't. You see me doing it sometimes, but I'm not fussed about it. Like, I just let things happen the way they happen and go with it. Here I have two 8x8 pieces of paper that are still joined a little bit at the hip there. This is a great example of a little bit of intuitive work, but a lot of intentional work. So kind of intuitively, the idea came to my mind about having a piece joined and then separated so that there's continuity there. And this was then very intentional to put this first piece down on the diagonal, crossing over both of the pieces of paper and then separating them, and then working to use elements that were definitely going to be in both pieces, if not all four of these pieces I'm working on right now, so that there's this continuity from piece to piece to piece, so you can see it's part of a series. But these particular two will go very well together. And then after a certain point here, it's a blend of working intuitively and intentionally. So in a minute, we're going to take a look at all of the pieces that I made from the original collage papers I made on my Gelli Plate from Lace and Spice. And this new series is called Light, Lace, and Spice, and all of these pieces are available for sale on my website, robinrandolph.com. And here's a quick look at the series now all framed and finished. Thank you so much for watching, and I always love when you comment, and thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and if you haven't already done so, I so appreciate if you would. All right, see you on the next one.